Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one! Another one!
Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown. Jonathan Taylor.
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and he hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. Jim Coyle with you, as always, for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway here at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Monday. It is, what is this, April 16th? 17th? 17th. Somehow didn't the tax man get delayed till tomorrow, right? Or is the day after that even? Tomorrow.
That's a good question.
Because of this,
of the Saturday,
because of the weekend. So there's that. But don't forget Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Indy Moore Honda. Just get more to your door with IndyMoreHonda.com, and also the Endeavor restaurants in and around the Bloomington area. Family of those places like BB's, where we are each and every Friday. Soon to open there, the Butcher's Cut, new steak restaurant. Looking forward to that. Lots more coming up. Dustin Schutte with me as always on the program today. Dustin Dopirak. I think we're going to hear from Kevin Sweeney. We'll see if we can get him on. Not a lot of movement over the weekend in sports in general, especially if the transfer portal is what you're looking at. Not a lot happening there. We'll talk about that. IU spring scrimmage happened in addition to a lot of other schools as well. Florida Badunga was in action. Zane Dowdy has made his selection for school again. He'll be going to play for Michael Lewis at Ball State. So congratulations to him. And whatever else is going on out there in the sports world. Dustin Schutte, how was your weekend?
Oh, it was good. It was good. I have no complaints from the weekend. Nice weather. Got outside. Still haven't played golf in the year 2023, but maybe soon. Because I don't want to pay the money it costs, to be quite honest. I think the golf rate has gone up significantly here, and I'm cheap. So that's the problem. You. By the way,
I understand.
The sports world, did you see this, Jim? Did you see the interaction between a Phoenix Suns fan and Russell Westbrook at halftime of that Clippers-Suns game?
That would have required me to be watching an NBA game over the weekend. So the answer to that is a hard no.
Well, it's on Twitter. And I just want to say that there is some sort of restaurant lounge where this man and his son are sitting eating. And he must have said something, and it connects to where the players come in, the opposing players come in through the tunnel. And he must have said something ridiculous, vulgar, or something. And Russell Westbrook just walks in there and gives the guy a piece of his mind. But the thing that was funny to me is I'm 5'8". This guy was obviously no taller than me. And he was trying to go chest to chest with Russell Westbrook, saying, take it like a man. Don't talk about it, be about it. And sometimes I just wish athletes could just like open hand slap a fan for saying something like, come on, man, you're not that tough guy. You are not.
Where did this take place? Did you say in a restaurant?
It was in Phoenix. It's like, okay, people familiar with Gamebridge Fieldhouse will know that there used to be, I don't know if there still is, on the court level, there's a restaurant where, and it kind of connects to the tunnel. So you can see the Pacers players and the opposing players go in and off the court. It was in a place like that. So it was in like a little restaurant lounge area. And the guy must have said something ridiculous because Russell Westbrook just stormed in there. And it's just, I mean, I don't know. Fans just get so carried away with some of this stuff. It was bizarre and also hilarious at the same time. But the problem is that Russell Westbrook went back to the locker room, and I guarantee you that guy is going to go home and tell all of his friends, yeah, man, I backed down Russell Westbrook. Anyway, that was just something bizarre from the sports weekend I saw.
Bizarre is certain. So there you go. Yeah, crazy. Fans are crazy. So there's that. Jennifer says it is Patriot Day, so taxes are due tomorrow. So there you go. Tamar Bates off to Missouri. No surprise there. I had been expecting to see that come to confirmation, but I guess that happened over the weekend. I saw the picture, but I thought that he had already made that announcement. But good for him. Closer to home for him. I think that is closer to his baby as well. So Indiana now still with 3 spots yet to fill. And all quiet on the Indiana front as of right now, partly because Mike Woodson underwent knee surgery. But over the weekend, Flory Badunga was in action with Indiana Elite at the Indy Ball Shootout. I don't think there was, I don't know if coaches were allowed to be up there. I'd have to check that because I don't think anyone was. But so a little AAU action getting started already. And school's not even out yet.
Are there really events in which coaches can't attend? Because this stuff gets out on Twitter and social media all the time. So why does it matter?
It depends on the time of year because they can't. There are times where they can't talk to. But, open dead periods. It's right. When you can talk period, when you can't, when you can see him, when you can visit, all this stuff. Yeah, there's an entire schedule that bounces. I mean, I know that.
I do know that. I understand that, but it's so dumb. Like I could understand it back in the day when we didn't have access to video.
It's to protect the students. It's just to say, hey, there's times where you can't. Where these guys, because they get bombarded, and so you're getting bombarded at times by people that you have no desire to play for.
Yeah, that's true. But
that allows it to be just a time where they don't have to worry about telling anybody no. It's like they're not going to be bothered that way.
Right. But that, to me, that's more of an AAU issue than it is a coaching issue. I mean, these kids play 365 days all year round, and that's to me, that's more punishing than the recruiting aspect of things. I mean, I get the point. I understand why they do it. It's just we're constantly in communication with one another, constantly seeing stuff. It just doesn't make as much sense as it probably used to.
Now, what does make sense like it used to? Not a lot. So
that's true.
There are things have changed, and so that's just how it is. So there you go. I mentioned Zane Dowdy. He had the kid from Ben Davis, who had been committed to Valpo, but there was a coaching change there, so he pulled back. Now he's going to go play for Michael Lewis at Ball State. So congratulations to those guys. Indiana waiting for the next domino to fall. I know a lot of people are waiting, hoping to hear a name like Chris Liedlam. And people are saying, I'm waiting for him to – why? He has not even visited Indiana yet. He did visit Tennessee and another school. And I'm just surprised. I'm wondering why. What's the big deal about getting in for a visit other than school? Right. I understand that. But on the weekends. So if Indiana can't get a visit, I wonder how likely it is that they will be able to even land that kid. So Indiana has 3 spots of very, very importance, 2 specifically. They we keep talking about this over and over, what their needs are. Everybody knows what their needs are. So it's not like I'm shocked that it's taking a minute. It's not been that long. How long has the tournament been over? A month? Has the tournament been over a month yet? No, 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Right.
Maybe. So yeah, it'll happen. People just get a little unrestful.
They do. Well, because you want to know. This is what we've talked about with the transfer portal in the past. a lot of times you just want to know what your next team is going to look like. And it is. I mean, because no longer do we live in an era where you knew who was going to be gone, you knew who was coming in, you knew who was returning, and then that was the end of that. You might have a guy or two maybe enter the transfer portal, and then you'd have to account for that. But that, or not the transfer portal, but just go through the transfer process. But now it's. I mean, we live in a microwave society, right? I want to know now. I want all the information now. I'm looking into every message board, every tweet, every Instagram post to see what these kids are doing, and it just takes some time. Plus, you got to remember too, there's a lot of other factors. This isn't just basketball in school anymore. This is an opportunity potentially for some of these high-level transfers to cash in on some NIL money. There's potential there. And then it's a domino effect, right? Like the coaches are recruiting the top players in the transfer portal. And then once those guys commit, then you tend to see some of the other guys start to fall in line too. So it's a process. It's the way it is now. I understand it's kind of annoying and you want to know who's going to be on your team, but wait and see, man. Wait and see. There's no rush.
Yeah, I think that Indiana may have had an in-home visit with Leland. But I don't think that he's been on campus. It's you need a scorecard to keep up with all these right now, and I'll have to go back and look. But I don't think that he has been on campus. But someone says that they thought he came in with where, and I'm like, someone did come in with where, but I can't remember who it was. It's too much. I mean, yes. to go by memory. Seriously, you got to have. I'm like, I didn't.
You need a bingo card.
In essence, yeah. In essence, so we'll see. There's nothing you can do besides wait anyway.
Right.
And so there's that. Sean says that Leland came to campus with where he is declining comment on all visits. At all visits. So, all right, he was on. I couldn't remember if because with Connect there was also, I think that they may have had a Zoom visit. I've got out all, but you got to go look and say, oh, no, okay, they did this kid with this and this and this and this and this and this and that. Speaking of visits, waiting to see if Deloche is going to reschedule his. He had a visit this past weekend with Penn State. Well, I'll find out how that went as well. Baseball's underway over weekend. You've got golf happening. Of course, the football scrimmages. Indiana, who's their quarterback? Who is Indiana's quarterback going to be? Don't know. This may come as a shock, but Indiana will not name a starting quarterback.
They're not going to name a single starter at all.
Stop me if you've heard that before.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised they let videos out in the spring game.
The thing is, they truly have. I think they really actually have a quarterback battle this time. I think that they truly do between Brandon Sorsby and at least Taven Jackson. There may actually be a true battle there. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Dustin Schutte is with me. Dustin Dopirak will join us, and plenty more. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're in the Where's my?
I don't know when you'll want to reference it, but I do have a clip from Tom Allen from the spring game.
Maybe during
Indiana football.
It's just kind of a summation of everything, so it's not as topic specific. So whenever you want to use it, you're welcome just to kind of bring it up.
Goodness. Can't believe we're almost done with spring games.
This segment's open, by the way. Dustin Dopirak is the segment after this.
Oh, okay.
So I've enjoyed this is the 100% best time of year because I can sit outside. There's little to no humidity. I've had 3 fires out in my backyard in the past week and a half, and that is the ultimate right there. Nothing better than when the thermometer says 75 and the real feel also says 75.
That's true. I'm more of like the 60. I like the 60s, mid to high 60s.
It depends on what activity you're doing. Like if you're hiking like you do, that makes sense.
Oh no, well, here's what's weird about me. I'd go hiking it when it's nice, but for some reason, when it's really hot or it's not really cold, but chilly, like 30s or 40s, I love to hike. I don't know why. Like, I just feel like I'm accomplishing something because if it's 90 degrees and I'm out hiking and you get all that sweat pouring off of you, or if it's 30 or 40, you get that cold sweat going. Whew.
Yeah. All right,
I love it.
The culmination of a passion for beer, food, and custom metal art. Check out their custom growlers. Metalworks Brewing Company has an updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste with Dr. Hops' Brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. How is your day going? Happy Tuesday. Jim Coyle, Dustin Schutte with you. How was your weekend? What an absolutely gorgeous Saturday it was here. I hope it was where you are. Then, of course, the spring rains rolled in on Sunday, and the temperatures just plummeted. Of course, supposed to be like a high around 50 today. Went from like 80 to 50s.
Typical Midwestern spring.
You got that right, but that's okay. Saturday was just absolutely gorgeous. Man, Jamie up and on everybody's everywhere. Jamie up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They're from all over. How's everybody doing today on the radio, down on the river, or listening on the ref? We appreciate everybody on 97.7 ESPN and our region rats up in the northwest corner on 12:30 a.m. 104.7 FM WJOB. How are you guys doing? All the White Sox fans up there. You got White Sox fans, Cardinals fans, Reds fans. I'm sure a bunch of Cubs fans mixed in there. That probably is the four bulk. I'd say that covers most of the fan base there with baseball, those 4 teams.
I would think so. Yeah.
And the Reds are just, golly. It seems like they're winning, and they're in last place.
What are they 7-8? They were 6-8 the other day.
6-9.
I don't know. 6-9.
6-9.
Okay, so not as nearly as awful as a year ago, and
but still last place.
Yeah, it's a never-ending cycle for the poor Reds. They don't
have Joey Votto right now, though.
I know. I mean, maybe they can get something cooking. Do you have, as you a Reds fan, do you have any faith that they're going to get something going, or is this a sense of false hope? Like, I feel like even 500 would be a fun baseball season for the Reds.
False hope? There is no. What's hope? There is no hope. But actually, if you look at the standings, with the exception of the American League East right now, that's the last place team is Boston at 500. So that's not awful. But then when you go to the American League Central, the Royals, smallest team over there. The AL West, the Athletics, the smallest team. NL League East, I don't know who the smallest team is that could. Probably the Washington Nationals. They're in last. In the Central, the smallest team, the Reds, they're in last. And in the NL West, the Rockies, I'm not sure, but I'm going to go with. That's not a team you expect anything out of either. So it's the same old, same old. That's the one thing about baseball. It's the big boys. You're not going to get. The Reds are not going to win the league anymore. It's not going to happen. And they're competing. And they're competing against teams that's almost their own size, minus the Cubs. They're just just a lot of ineptitude.
I think it's a good question, because I feel like you can win in baseball even if you don't have a monster. Like, I mean, I guess you would have to use the Moneyball reference, right? But you can win in baseball because baseball is weird. The problem is those guys then generally go on to get bigger contracts, so it's not sustainable. So I don't know. You do have to spend money in Major League Baseball to win. It's not impossible. You have a better chance to win in baseball without a monster lineup than in any other professional sport. It doesn't mean you have a great chance, but
Reds' magic number, according to Philip, is the number of losses before they start the annual fire sales. What he should have said. That's no lying.
Hey, there you
Look
go.
at Kent says Cubs, baby. I told you, I knew there was Cubs fans all over the place.
Of course.
More Cubs fans.
They're everywhere. And they're 8-6. How about that?
There's that. Sean says, off topic. There is no topic. Thoughts of the Savannah Bananas and the extreme popularity of their version of baseball. What's the Savannah Bananas?
Yeah. The Savannah Bananas.
Minor league.
It's a minor league team.
Sold out 2 nights, and the cheapest seat on StubHub in Indy is over $200.
At Victory Field.
Oh, so they play. So they're AAA.
I guess I didn't know.
So what's going on with the Savannah Bananas? I'm not aware of what is happening.
You're not familiar?
No, please tell me they're not wearing banana hammock pants for baseball pants.
They don't. That's a good reference, but that is not what's happening. So they've actually done a 30 for 30 or ESPN shorter, a 30 for 30 on the Savannah Bananas. Basically, they have taken a unique approach to minor league baseball in where they do. It's very Harlem Globetrotter-esque. Now they play actual baseball, but there's a lot of stunts. There's a lot of gimmicks, but it's to entertain the fans, because they know that fans aren't just coming out to AAA baseball. In majority, they're not just coming out to a AAA baseball game for balls and strikes like you would go to see the Braves or the Reds or the Cubs.
But what are they doing on the road?
I assume they do the same stunts. Like I said, it's very Harlem Globetrotter-esque.
So what are we talking about? The second baseman grounds feels a grounder and does a somersault before he throws it over to first?
I think you need to watch the 30 for 30 because they do. I think it's a lot of times.
I understand that, but we're trying to explain it to a radio audience.
I don't know if I can. But they do stuff between innings. I don't have a specific example. Like I think they've hit baseballs with like a bat that's lit aflame. They'll come out and do stuff they'll do acts on stilts. They wear ridiculous looking uniforms at times.
Now, are these the actual players that are doing this stuff?
I think some of the times, yeah, they are the actual players, and then other times it's part of a crew that does it.
Well,
But
I'm wondering. I'm like, first
now
of all,
I don't know that
professional
it's
ball player is not. He's like, wait, what is this? What am I, a clown? Do I amuse you? How do I amuse you?
funny how.
Funny how? Funny like a clown?
So it's just a very unique approach to minor league baseball. And I wish I could, what I need to do.
Well, that's saying something in and of itself when you say a unique approach to minor league baseball, because virtually everything that can be done has been done over the years, you would think.
Right.
But yeah, I was not aware of this, especially at that level. I mean, you don't usually get it at the AAA level. A. Ray Smith, who brought the Redbirds to Louisville back in the 80s, did that stuff. But man, you usually don't see it at the AAA level.
So one guy, and I don't know that they're I can't imagine they're AAA. I don't think they are, but I could be wrong on that. So a pitcher was wearing a cowboy hat while on the mound.
I don't see how is that legal.
Because it's I don't know. I'm guessing there's been something. I don't know. You just go through, if you just type into your Google machine and you just type in Savannah Bananas, there is your
Google machine. The kids love that, the Google machine.
They do.
They all use that.
They do love the Google machine.
I hear that's what the kids are using these days, the Google machine.
See, they crossed home plate and they brought out an inflatable, one of those I don't know what they're called, but you know those dancing things where you put the air in the bottom. You see them at a lot of car dealerships, and they flail about. People on the radio can't see me, but they do this sort of thing where it's one of those giant inflatable people that dances around. They brought that out after they won a game. It's just very cool.
Yeah, well, it sounds crazy, but that's what minor league baseball is about, baby.
That's what it should be about. Nobody's going there unless you're a scout. Nobody's going there because they care about the wins and the losses.
That's like what was Danny McBride? What was his character? He played the minor league baseball player. Oh man, come on! It's a funny show. Hilarious.
Is it a movie or a show?
Eastbound and Down.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, okay. What does that mean? You've never heard of it?
No, I know what it is, but
it's hilarious. Oh my God. It is absolutely hilarious. And it's about him. He made it to the show like for a minute, maybe, I think, but ends up being relegated to the minors. And there you go. Kenny Powers, baby. Kenny Powers. I've got a Kenny Powers jersey somewhere. Shirt.
Do you really?
Oh, hell yes.
That actually doesn't surprise me.
Kenny Powers is hilarious. I mean,
seen Eastbound and Down.
Yeah.
I'm sure that shocked everybody.
You're out. That's not the full length of that phrase that he uses.
Some other choice words.
Minor league baseball has long been the sports world's avenue of expression, I guess you'd say, of drawing people in, doing different things. The names of the various minor league teams are incredible. Like there you go, Savannah Bananas.
Exactly.
Do they grow bananas in Savannah, Georgia?
I doubt it. That's a good question.
I didn't think so. So I mean, I guess it rhymes.
Exactly.
But there are banana ball rules now.
There we go.
The Savannah Bananas are an exhibition baseball team.
Okay, there we go. I thought they were minor league. I didn't think they were AAA, but I thought that they were like a minor league team, like an A.
Okay. Now things are starting to come into view a little bit better. Was that today? They're going to be at Victory Field?
Might be.
But they're an exhibition baseball team based in Savannah, of course. Founded in 2016, they played at Grayson Stadium since their inaugural season until 2022. They competed in the Coastal Plain League's CPL West Division, where they won 3 Pettit Cup.
There you go.
Where did it go? Championships, including last year. The team has sold out every game since the first season in Savannah and every city on the Banana Ball World Tour.
The Banana Ball
has been featured, but Banana Ball been featured by ESPN, Wall Street Journal, Sports Illustrated because of its on-field hijinks and viral videos. So, in essence, they're the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball.
Yeah. Is it hard to dance with all them bananas on your head?
I guess I missed that.
You missed that one. I'm pretty sure. What's the name of that movie? Hail Caesar, I think it is, with George Clooney. It's a hilarious scene. I won't get into it, but apparently our friend Pete Clausen, big fan of the Savannah Bananas, he says not AAA, part of the Coastal Plain League. This year they are on what they call a world tour all over the U.S., and almost every game is sold out. Which I know that's kind of what you read already, but I'm going to give Pete some credit because he had it before you did.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and that means you want entertainment. You go to a sports game to be entertained. Well, the thing is, you don't always know that you're going to be entertained. You don't always know that you're going to get a good game. You may not see the stars you want to see. The stars may not perform. They may not perform well. The team may not perform well. These guys are going to perform every time. So that's the cool thing.
It's about as close to an entertainment guarantee as you're going to get.
Okay, let me read. Here's some of the Banana Ball rules. The Bananas have implemented a number of deviations from standard basketball rules in use since June 2020 at home in most, if not all, touring exhibition games, branded as Banana Ball. The team that scores the most runs in an inning gets 1 point, except in the 9th inning, where every run counts as 1 point. If an inning ends with one team at 5, that's too much crap for us to know. I'm looking for funny. All right. There's no bunting. There's a 2-hour time limit on the games.
There you go. Even better.
If a team is leading on points at that time, that team wins. Over. Doesn't matter. Boom. That takes care of your time issues.
Yep.
There's no bunting. A batter who attempts a bunt is ejected from the game.
Perfect.
Batters are not allowed to step out of the batter's box. A violation is an automatic strike. I love this.
There you go.
This is like David Letterman stuff. Batters are allowed to steal first base. How the hell does that happen? Specifically, they can attempt to advance to first base in the case of a wild pitch or a pass ball at any time during the at-bat. That's kind of funny. No mound visits are allowed. Keeps the game going. Walks are now called sprints. After the 4th ball, the batter is allowed to advance as far around the bases as he can.
There you
the
go.
ball must be sequentially thrown to all of the fielders apart from the pitcher, starting with the catcher. The ball remains dead with the batter / runner not liable to be put out until all of the fielders apart from the pitcher and catcher have touched the ball. I mean, this is pretty hilarious. As a matter of fact, I'm laughing my butt off here and wishing that I could go see a game just by reading these rules. Foul balls caught by fans are counted as outs. That's
nice.
Great.
I like that rule.
That is great. Ties are broken by what the Bananas call a one-on-one showdown, which can last at least 3 rounds. Each team selects a pitcher and hitter to face off, with the pitching team having only the pitcher, catcher, and a single fielder during the first round. Wow. Second round, the fielder is eliminated. Jeez. They're funny. The Bananas recorded over 80,000 total fans at 25 home games.
Wow.
That's great.
Wow.
We got to take a break, but man, that is that's some fun stuff, man. Yeah, that's one of my favorite rules there. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat. Back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Well, because Russell, he didn't catch the ball.
Did he drop it?
Yeah, I assume I assume he's talking about Steve Bartman. If that's what he's talking about, he didn't catch it. He dropped it.
Can you imagine?
That's what made it worse.
Well, he fumbled it he kind of interfered with
Moises
who was playing left field. It was
Moises Alou. MLB should adopt the foul ball rule, except that would be a problem for the visiting team.
All they need to do is just put a freaking net, put a 6-foot net along those things. You can't reach over.
I don't disagree with that. I don't even think it needs to be 6 feet. Just make it could be if you were a foot high, maybe 2 feet.
It's got to be at least 6 foot, because if you stand up, I mean, I'm 6'1", so if I can stand up, I can reach over a 6-foot net.
Yeah, but you're going to be elevated from the playing field usually. I mean, I guess it depends on the structure, but like at Wrigley Field, if that net was 1.5 feet high, there's nobody going to be able to reach over it. At least where it's going to interfere with the player.
950. He just confirmed with me.
Beautiful. You're beautiful.
We're ready for him, but I haven't heard from him. I kind of figured he would just pop on, but we'll see.
Pop on.
Pop off.
Pop on, pop off.
Hey man, what did the guy say? Why don't you just jump off, George? Is that what it was? Jump off?
I don't know. Might have been. I don't remember. My Seinfeld memory is not great.
The Savannah Bananas.
That was a fun little conversation y'all had.
Nanners.
Oh.
The
Savannah Bananas.
Here's Mr. Dopirak.
Here I am. I'm sorry.
But
you missed the Savannah Bananas conversation.
I missed it. Sad.
I said, no, what's sadder is I was not aware of the Savannah Bananas.
Wow.
I like.
Well, you live in Indy. You live in Indy, so you could probably see commercials for it. I was not aware of them.
No, I mean, I'm trying to remember where actually I didn't hear of them through commercials or anything like that. I think the first I ever saw them were these. There would be like viral videos of them like dancing before they throw a pitch or something like that.
10 seconds, guys. Right here.
Dude,
Leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Well, welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. I don't know what in the hell kind of intro walk-up music that is, but
sometimes you never know what you're going to get. You never know what you're going to get.
I was going to say I was standing in an elevator.
I'm like, wow, Dustin Dopirak coming on, and I'm like,
it sounds very Three's Company, actually. It seems
very 70s. There you go, very 70s, kind of late 70s. Yeah,
it's got a very 70s theme to it.
Maxine says absolutely.
That,
we were just in the break talking about the Savannah, or in previous segment, talking about the Savannah Bananas I'd never heard of. You're somewhat familiar with them, but man, and as is Maxine, but I was reading the rules and laughing my butt off at that, what that must be like to attend one of their games.
Yeah, they're practically like they're the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball, basically. I mean, I think I read I'm not sure if I read this whole story, but I read a kind of a feature on their whole deal and how they came to be. And I guess their owner was like, okay, we're gonna, go under if we don't do something, and just decided that, like, all right, we're gonna pull out every single stop, that we're gonna try to, this isn't gonna go anywhere if you just try to play baseball. Like, you're gonna end up just you're gonna end up bankrupt. And so you've got to come up with something, and that's sort of what they came up with. And it sort of became baseball and showmanship and everything like that. And again, like, guys are doing twirls and dances and everything like that. And there's I think, other guys are lighting their bats on fire. I mean, like, I don't even know how it became, how do you start, and then how do you get somebody else to play along with you is sort of like, I think, the interesting question about that. Because everybody, the other team is always in on the joke, and is doing a lot of the same things. They don't get the same, I guess, credit for it. But I don't think the Bananas win every time. I don't think, like, every other team is like the Washington Generals. But it's, I don't know. I'm fascinated by it. I know my wife really wants to go see a game. Like, she read about it. I think there was a big feature. I can't remember if it was the New York Times or the Washington Post or whatever, but sort of some type of, major outlet did a feature, sending somebody down there to talk to this guy and whatever. Cause, like, the owner, is youngish. I mean, I think he's younger than me. And he goes to all the games in a yellow suit. And so, it's just a total kind of bizarre kind of deal. So I'm very interested as to what that looks like in reality. I know they're doing some barnstorming. They do play some games, like, away from Savannah and stuff like that. And it's a show, and I'm sure it's not an easy ticket to get at this point, just because they become a thing. And
not only that, but, like, Savannah is a tourist destination. Like, it's a place a lot of people go. You're not probably going to go and spend a week or two in Savannah, Georgia, but you might go for a weekend, and that's become an attraction, is to go to one of those games. And I think that, to your point, how you get the other team in on the joke, I'm sure at some point there was, hey, we're selling out these stadiums. We're making a boatload of money. And then it gets a lot easier for a minor league baseball team to jump on board with that. If you can sell out your stadium, sell a few more beers and hot dogs at the concession stand during those things. So I think it would have been difficult. I don't know, maybe the first year or whenever they started doing this, but after they saw the I can't imagine it's not difficult now. There's no, I mean, obviously they're selling out road stadiums. So
no, it's a huge deal now. I'm trying to remember, like, I think I remember the first Twitter video I remember seeing is, like, just the whole entire infield was, like, in some kind of coordinated dance, and then turn around and the guy throws a pitch. I'm like, what is this? And if you told me, I mean, it's such a, like, time is such a vortex over the last few years, because you're just like, okay, what was 2020 was in there somewhere, and I don't remember what it was. So if you told me this was 5 years ago I saw this video, I'd believe you, somewhere in that range, or four seems more like it. But I just remember that video, like, what is going on down there? And the next thing they were everywhere. So,
you think about it, it's like, how did it take someone this long to come up with this? Because the Globetrotters have been around for 100 years.
I mean, there's so many answers to that question. Now, for one thing, I mean, like, you even more have to be bought in a joke. Like, baseball, in its, like, the main act of baseball is a little bit dangerous. Like, and so it's not the sort, basically, like, you can kill a guy, with a baseball, so if you mess up, like, it's not one of those things where, like, like baseball, football is obviously a whole different animal, and it's a different level of that. But, like, there is one act in baseball that can be violent. It's not supposed to be, but it ends up being, because, again, you're throwing a hard ball 90 plus miles an hour, even if you're playing around. That's what these guys, I'm sure these guys are still throwing 90 or 85 at least. So it's like, all right, how much screwing around can you do if you're going to throw a projectile 85 miles an hour at some point? And so, like, what how much you want to play around. Where basketball, I mean, you just got this leather ball. I mean, like, it is supposed to be sort of artistic, and there's not, like, obviously it can get physical between bodies, but you don't have anything out there that can really hurt you. And a baseball can. So I'm sure it took people a while for them to be like this, that, whatever. But I mean, obviously there's the additional piece of, I think like, what am I trying to say here exactly? Yeah, no, I'm gonna skip this entirely. This fits into culture and whatnot, and like Harlem and like the Harlem Globetrotters and everything, and how they started, and then so you could bring Negro League Baseball into the discussion here and whatnot, and say like they're being sort of basically just they're I don't know, just people, not just fun, but like there's a reason why the Globetrotters came out of where the Globetrotters came from. There's a reason why that's sort of where it emanated from and whatnot. And because, again, like, how you had to get opportunities for Black athletes at that point in time, like that's part of that, story where like, you didn't have to do that for white baseball. You didn't have to do that for the same reason. So, like I'm sure you could look back and see something of things that Negro League Baseball did differently to attract an audience. And the Harlem Globetrotters had to do that to attract an audience. And so there was going to be this show to come see, whereas it was just a different America. And so, like that's the root of that, I think, is why the Globetrotters became what they became. And you don't have sort of a similar thing at the minor league baseball.
Great. That's a great explanation of that. Indy sports right now, and not just Indy is in Indianapolis, but you've got the Colts, the Pacers, Indiana Hoosiers, basketball and football, all at kind of crossroads of sorts. The Colts, obviously, in dire need of a quarterback. The Pacers in much better shape, but still they've got to get the things solidified. Hoosiers basketball, it seems to be in the right direction, but they have spots that have to be filled by specific type people. And if they're not, that's not going to forward the Hoosier program any more than it is. And then, of course, Indiana football right now in kind of a similar situation as the Colts with who in the world is their quarterback going to be. I think they actually have a quarterback race for once, even though they pretended to have one for what seems like the last decade. But I think they actually have a quarterback race this season. So I don't know, has all of these entities been at such a crossroads at this same time like this?
I would say yes, because well, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I guess you could just say, okay, because you have to start that with when have the Colts needed a quarterback. What's been like, obviously they have for about the past 5 years since the Luck retirement, and has that lined up with sort of everybody else being bad? And usually the answer is no. I mean, I think you go back to, okay, the Manning neck injury year, when they were trash, I think the Pacers were still good. I think that was about, that was the Paul George period, if I'm not mistaken, that they were a playoff team. So you wouldn't say the Pacers then. And I think IU was coming up at that point. That was right around Kentucky time, or IU beating Kentucky time and stuff like that. And football, IU football wasn't good, but obviously, they're going to be the outlier on that most of the time. And so, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know that you would even just have a summer. Maxine's got lots of thoughts on this. I don't know that you've seen a summer, I think, where there is such a pivotal the draft is so important for both the Colts and the Pacers. Hold on a second. I don't know.
Maxine does not agree with Dustin's thoughts on this today.
There is something really important to go yell at outside, so I'm going to let her do that. So talk among yourselves real quick. I'm going to come back.
Well, I think.
Well, the first up on this is going to be the NBA draft is coming up before the NFL draft, correct? The NFL's not till
no.
It's reversed. Okay, it's reversed.
NFL's in
the
a couple
draft in 2 weeks. The NBA draft is June 27th.
June. Okay, that's in June.
So yeah, I mean, I think the Pacers are obviously in a position where they need an important player here, but they have their franchise centerpiece. Tyrese Halliburton is the equivalent of their quarterback, and they've got him. So they're not in a position where they can't miss this pick, but it's also they're not building their whole franchise around this pick, where the Colts have to build their whole franchise around this pick. But the Pacers pick is still very, very important. I mean, they have to be able to, this has to be a guy who's got to be core. The lottery pick. I mean, I think the rest of the picks, I'm sure they're going to take somebody else with their other picks. I will imagine they will have multiple rookies, but they could have up to 5 picks, I think. And they're not taking in 5 rookies. Kevin Pritchard's been very clear in saying, like, I don't need that many young guys. Right. She's loving it. She's watching a Savannah Bananas video on YouTube, losing her mind. She's like, I can't believe they do this. They're rules. Aren't there supposed to be rules? You can't dance and pitch.
That should be the next. That should be part of. She should be part of the next game. Maxine's just out there chasing the ball around. She could be a fielder, shortstop.
Right, exactly. My wife will be mad if I don't mention this. She actually beat it. Like she actually did a better. We filled out a bracket for her, and she did better than us. It was entirely based on. It was entirely based on selecting animals. Basically, like dogs were priority. And I think like MJ had a whole entire system. It was like dogs are better than cats. I think cats were last. Birds were ahead of cats, I think. I don't know. But one way or the other, animals were supposed to win. I think she had Gonzaga winning it all. It didn't work out that way, but I think they had her beating UConn in the final, and so she beat us. She had the best bracket in the house. So, my wife, since we're talking about Maxine, my wife will want me to mention that.
Perfect.
Anyway, going back, where were we? I think the Pacers are in a position where whoever they get has to be able to play, has to be able to make a difference, but he doesn't have to be the franchise centerpiece. So I think, obviously if they get, the number 1 lottery ball and they get Victor Wembanyama, then he will be the franchise centerpiece. I don't know that he necessarily takes over for Tyrese, but you build your franchise around that guy if you get him, because he's
Bob Kravitz had a piece, and I can't say I disagree with it, because it's where they're starting to get to. They're getting the culture getting to a weird place for having the 4th pick. It's like you're not in as great a position as what it once looked like it was going to be after Carolina made their move. And
sure,
is it beyond the realm of thought that they don't take a quarterback this year? I know that sounds crazy.
It's crazy. No, I mean, I would say yes. Here's why, is that I don't think, I mean, I think it would be nuts not like just even if you don't get Young or Stroud, which it looks like you won't. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, who are you rolling the dice for next year, and are you willing to be just trash again? Like,
what makes you think you're not going to be trash with a rookie quarterback?
Once you get, well, no, of course, but like, let's be serious. When you
take who's not your first, second, or who's not your first or second pick.
No, I get it. What I'm saying is, though, that when you draft a quarterback, you can tell your fans to be patient. When you say, this is our guy, this is who it's going to be, like, obviously he's a rookie and we're probably going to have a bad year, but he's the guy, like this is what you have to look forward to, invest your hearts and minds in this guy. And, it's, trust us here. When you don't have anybody and you're telling them to wish on a future draft, that's a harder sell. And so even, like, just from a, like, not a fan perspective, but obviously like just following my, the folks from my homeland, Steelers take a quarterback. They had to take a quarterback after Roethlisberger, moved on, after Roethlisberger retired, and they get him at 20 or whatever, and he's the first quarterback taken, and it's a much, much lesser class as far as quarterbacks is concerned. But you can at least point to Kenny Pickett and say that's your guy for the future. Now, I don't know if he ends up being, great or how many years you get out of him being the guy, but you can at least point to say something like this is what you have to wish on, and you can have a bad year and position yourself for a great player, but like when you've had a bad year, you have to take the guy, like whoever's your best option, you have to take the guy and run with it. I don't think you can tank twice. Like, I think you're asking a lot from a fan base that's used to its team being good, that's generally used to its team being at least functional. And for them to be as bad as they were and have a coaching change and everything like that, I don't know if you're going to be able to sell them on we're going to wait another year. And like So you almost on purpose have to be terrible, and like that's just a big ask. Like after you've gone through a total trash, like you can go through multiple trash seasons when you could at least point to a guy and say he's the one that's going to be it. Like, but it's another thing to say, okay, well, we didn't work out. We didn't get the guy we wanted. The guy that we wanted wasn't on the board, so we're just going to skip it. And we're going to take another year and roll the dice again and hope, that it works out next year. When you could run in the same problem. You could run in the exact same scenario. If you're identifying 2 quarterbacks right now, and shoot, I'm sure Caleb Williams is first on everybody's list. But I mean, like, I just don't think you run it back and hope for Caleb. I don't think you do that. And, that would be too much of a risk for me.
We got to take a quick break. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Stars with us, as long as Dustin Schutte. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're in the market, what is up next for you, brother?
I'm out at 10-10, by the way. I'm just mentioning that.
Cool. Okay.
What's next for me is chilling for
Relax.
a while. Yeah,
God.
Dude. I mean, like, what's next for me is I got to go do my taxes today. How
do people?
Man.
How do you people do this?
You people? Who's you people?
Yeah, exactly. Who's you people? Where are you getting at?
Well, mostly Dustin Dopirak and John. By the way, I got to mention this. The backwards hat.
Thursday, though. I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I know, but backwards hat. You absolutely look like a drummer in a '90s rock band. I think it's a good look. I'm a big fan.
That's what I've been going for my whole life.
He should be in Limp Bizkit or something.
Oh no! Okay. I was feeling good about myself there, John.
Well, now joining us is Fred Durst.
Stop.
Fred Durst without the little soul patch.
Right. Yeah. No,
but John is a fan of who's his big band?
I like all sorts of bands, but I know you
want to be
for liking Nickelback, so that's fine.
Nickelback, yes, he's known as the big Nickelback fan.
Is that honest? Is that an honest? Is that an honest?
I'm a fan, but I'm not like a fan boy.
Okay.
Like he's trying to refer to me as.
I've never say it. Everybody else says it. I never say it.
But that's what people do, though. When people find out that you like a band like Nickelback, they just try to run with it and make it seem like you're the biggest fan ever.
This is true because they're the biggest fan they know, John.
That's
because no one else admits it.
I did a tweet. This became such a big conversation, like probably last year. I think
it was.
We did a poll, and it was something about being a closet Nickelback fan. I can't remember what the question was, and we got more yeses than nos. I wish I had the question right in front of me because
I really want to know what are people's issues with them.
I can run those off, but instead of doing that, because I like John, I'm going to say that "How You Remind Me" was a good song. That's that.
Here's the thing. I fully understand.
I got off the train after that, but
I know why people don't like them, and I know why people do like. They just a lot of their stuff sounds the same, and some of their lyrics don't make any sense, and that's just how it goes sometimes.
Correct. That would be a simple to the point explanation. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Their music's fun though. That's why I like it.
Here's the thing though. It's to me it's the Dane Cook effect, right? Like as soon as it gets popular to pour on, then everybody else does it. Like they don't get right. Like I don't particularly care for them, but I don't hate them or like you know what I mean? Like I give John a hard time because we're friends and it's a little funny, but I'm not out here to like embarrass him because he likes Nickelback.
All made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast Market and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, joined by Dustin Schutte, Dustin Dopirak, and Maxine making a special appearance again. She has many thoughts, and what was I forget what I was going to bring up. Oh yeah, someone the point I just brought up, Howard. Ohio State had 75,000 fans at their spring game. Penn State about the same. IU maybe 1,000. How can IU compete revenue-wise?
They can't.
They can't.
For 70 years.
And that's not going to change.
No,
it's not. It's not going to change. And I wonder the difference between the greatness that we saw in the NCAA tournament in basketball this year with Florida Atlantic being in the Final Four, with San Diego State. That is not going to happen on the football side of things.
No.
You're not going to see these upstarts playing for the national championship.
I mean, they can get puncher's chances and whatnot. I mean, like, there are a few scenarios like TCU got in the playoff. Like now, that's not. So what had to happen to get there? Like obviously they are different scenarios. And everybody's. But like generally the path for a school that's not as big or a program that doesn't draw as much is harder. I mean, look, TCU's in Texas. Like it's not like they don't have opportunity down there. It's not like they don't have a ton of fans down there. It's not like they can't get money, but TCU had to move up. I mean, what were they, like I'm trying to think of the all-time path of TCU because I think they were a Southwest Conference team, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember. I know they were in the Mountain West.
Back in the day?
In the day when the Southwest Conference was a thing, were they not?
I can't imagine that they weren't. Yeah.
I mean, they've got like who was it who from like the 30s won a Heisman there? Like, I'm blanking on the guy.
Oh man, are we talking about Red Grange or somebody?
No, we're not talking about Red Grange. There wasn't a Heisman trophy in Red Grange.
He was in Illinois.
He went to Illinois.
Illinois. Was it Doak Walker? Did Doak Walker go to SMU?
Davey O'Brien?
Yes. Okay, I was going to say there is an award named after a guy who went to TCU, and I think Doak Walker went to SMU. Yeah.
Wow.
Doak Walker went to SMU, and
wow, I did not know you were around then, Dustin. Dang.
So it's I got a lot of deep roots, man, and so and just it's a great skincare routine too, keeps me healthy. But no, I think so. They've obviously got history and whatnot, and that makes a difference. But yeah, no, it is extremely difficult, as we've obviously seen, to break through in football in ways that it isn't with basketball. And that's just, I mean, mostly that's the sport. I mean, that is like, having 5 guys out there put a ball in a hoop versus you've got to move a football 100 yards against 11 guys. Like, that's how the sport works. And the way that it's put together, it demands, investment, lots of players, lots of talent, which at the college level equates to lots of money. Like the equation's just different.
But
you
so
get
this
one
is
guy
always,
out there on the basketball floor, you can change your life. And
right.
Football, it only kind of can't. Like you got to have a
right.
full offensive line. You got to have depth. You got to have you got to have a lot of guys, and getting a lot of guys takes a lot of money.
See, a lot of people will use the example of the NCAA tournament, and now we're going to get an expanded playoff to 12 teams and say, we've seen the upsets, and a lot of people will counter that and be like, football's not basketball. And that's 100% true. It is true. But we are just now seeing what in the last 5 years, we've just now seen 2 16 seeds upset a number 1 seed. Like, you can't expect a 12-team playoff is going to change the landscape of football, of college football immediately. Like, it's going to take a while. But I do think that you will see with an expanded playoff and giving smaller schools an opportunity to compete at that level, and with NIL becoming a factor, I do think at some point the field is going to level out. Now, I don't think it's going to be a situation where you see a team like San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, Miami, and UConn in the Final Four. I don't think we're going to see that. But can the occasional UCF, can the occasional Cincinnati or Houston or maybe a San Diego State, somebody get into the Final Four? I think eventually we'll see that. It's just going to take time. So, I don't know. To say that we'll never see what we saw in the NCAA tournament in college football, I agree with it, because I don't think you'll ever see where you have kind of three teams making their first appearance in the Final Four, along with one, what Jim likes to call new blood. But I do think that after time, you'll see a lower level program or a team that hasn't been that great. Indiana could get hot. Illinois could get hot and get to the Final Four in the college football side. I think eventually you'll see that. It just takes time for these things to balance out.
Right. I mean, I think it's also sort of like, what's the equivalent? Like, so we've seen, when it comes to bowl games, like teams like that win a game, and so when it becomes a tournament game, like that obviously I think changes. Maybe she wants to come in, maybe she doesn't. Anyway, like, since you've had the New Year's Six and whatnot, you've had some teams like Houston get in and win their game, and so like how much does it matter when it's not a part of a tournament? It's like someone like you can nerd out. People who nerd out care, but it's like also especially when we've got people sitting out these games, it changes the level. But so if you make it a 12-team playoff and these games matter and everybody's playing their guys, okay, then one of those teams is going to beat somebody. Right. And they'll beat a name brand program. They might not beat, like, if you're the 12 and you beat the 5, I can't remember if we're going to have buys in this or whatever, exactly how the bracket's going to play out. But let's say it's a 12-team playoff and the top 4 get buys, and so it's 5-12, 6-11, 7-10, 8-9. Can a 12 beat a 5? If the 12 is the G5, representative, can that 12 beat that 5? Yes, that can definitely happen. I think we will absolutely see that occur. That the G5 champion or the G5 representative gets in and wins a game. And so, okay, then that gets you into the Elite Eight. Does then that team so then that the 5 will play the 4, right? So the 12 gets the 4. Is it possible then that the 12 beats the 4? Yes, I think that's possible. The issue is that when you get further into the playoff, are they going to beat the 1 and the 2? Probably not. Right. That's kind of where that's where they're probably not going to be able to make that leap. But there is going to be that kind of that will be the version of a Cinderella. I think is just somebody who wins a game, and then that can move the needle. And that can start you moving toward that direction and getting more investment in a program like that, and somebody seeing, hey, like if you can get 1 game, maybe you can get 2, and maybe you can get 3, and maybe you can get 4. So there's a chance of that moving the needle, but it's going to be harder because it's just so much is entrenched, and there is just so much money already accrued in the big schools. Like they just have like so much of an advantage, and the money, just ends up being such a big deal. And just the ability to accrue talent, and just shoot. Right now, it's not even just the money; it's the South. Like, right. It's the South. It's the SEC. Like the SEC, like just I don't like. At the end of the day, does the SEC have more money than the Big Ten? No, but does the SEC have more overall talent? Yes. I mean, and it's a resource. The talent in the South is a resource. That and if it is your home resource, you can get more out of it than you can if you have to go there. And obviously Indiana's got a lot out of going down there, and a lot of other teams have, but it's just like when it's your backyard, it's different, and they've been able to make the most out of having the South as their backyard for years and years and years and years. But especially the last 20, 30, they've made it very hard for anybody else to win.
Speaking of rule changes in sports, that doesn't happen. Well, rule changes change, but looking at baseball, increasing the size of the bases, that is something. I'm trying to think of something analogetic in other major sports, like changing the size of the basketball or the football or widening the goalpost. But I can't think of what's the most recent thing of something like that, where you're changing something that has not been changed in a sport for gosh knows how long.
Well, the 3-point line.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the 3-point line, I'm trying to think of when they've widened the key or shrunk the key. I think those are pretty big. I think Has anything been done with hash marks in the NFL?
As far as in or out,
widening hash marks.
Because if people don't realize, if you watch a college game, the hash marks are much different. They're further out than an NFL game. The NFL hash marks, what are they, 10 yards apart, maybe in the center of the field?
Tight. Yeah, and that makes a pretty significant difference as to gameplay. You know, like the geography of the sport is different based on what hash you're on and how, you know, the size, like the space of the hashes, you know, and like a lot was done with basketball with spacing, you know, just in general, fouls, like what gets called and what doesn't, you know, that kind of thing. Kick returns to football, that's a big one. That is a really good point.
That is a big one.
Yeah, that, you know, just a lot of the safety. Well, obviously, you know, then that brings in the entire raft of those rule changes, you know, targeting and, you know, everything that enjoyed, everything that came along with that, you know, basically like everything that came along with player safety and stuff that used to be, actually that's true. Pete Clausen says the zone area for legal charging calls in the NBA is relatively new. Yeah, the restricted area.
Yep.
Didn't used to be a thing, you know, very long ago. I think baseballs are, like, these moves are very interesting because they are changing some things that are like we kind of felt were set in stone, you know, and it's baseball, so everything feels like it was literally, you know, marched down from a mountaintop with you know, like on tablets, you know.
And baseball is probably a sport that has been hit harder by negative things, mainly the steroid era. No sport has, even football has not been hit by the steroid. You would think it would be football, even though they were all using them.
Football was hit close to as hard. The difference was like where I think where people view football statistically, because if you're like, okay, well, if that guy's on steroids and that guy's on steroids and they run against each other, then who cares? Like then who gains a advantage? And all they're doing is just running it and hitting each other, you know, in the mouth. So what's lessened, what's gained? But, you know, in baseball, you're always competing against history, you know, like you know, in a way that, you know, like football history matters and basketball history matters and whatnot, but baseball is obsessed with its numbers more than any of the other sports and its records and whatnot. And because, you know, like that's what keeps you in for 162 games is, you know, are they going to hit that record, you know, and, you know, like, why am I, you know, watching every Yankee game for a week, you know, or 2 weeks because I want to see if Aaron Judge breaks the record? Why, you know, like, why did I spend an entire summer following McGuire and Sosa? Like, you know, like just all that draws you in. And so, you know, like doing anything that changes those or messes around with those is an issue. God, she's really upset today.
It's the Maxine show, baby.
Big piece. She's also got thoughts on this. Today's a very vocal morning for Maxine. So
well, that's all right, buddy. We'll let you go. We'll appreciate you, Dustin Dopirak and Maxine. We'll be back next week and look forward to it, buddy. Can't thank you enough. Appreciate Dustin and Maxine for showing up. You know, in golf, Jack Nicklaus talked. I saw him talk about this a long time ago, and I am shocked that it has not happened on specifically courses that the general person plays, like myself, was to increase the cup size by like an inch, maybe 2 inches. I can't remember what it was, but he said, if you want to get the everyday guy out there more often, and it's the truth. I can't tell you how many times you miss a putt that's that close, and everyone could say this or that, but oh well. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, Kevin Sweeney from college basketball joins us right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Kevin, how are you today, brother?
What's up, man? How are you?
You got a nice little setup there as well, looks like.
Yeah, got to have something for the run of Zooms during the season.
I'm telling you. It's non-stop. Where are you? I forget.
Chicago.
Chicago, that's right.
Do you live downtown?
I live just south of Loyola's campus, if you know where that is. So like 4 or 5 miles north of like true downtown, but in the city limits.
Okay.
That's south of Evanston, right?
Yeah, it's basically the halfway point between Evanston and downtown, if you were to throw it on a map.
So when Chris is going into Chicago, he stops and Chris Collins picks up Sister Jean and going for a little lunch.
Oh, God.
Man, it slowed down a little bit, huh?
Thankfully.
I was a little surprised how it slowed down so fast, still without a lot of things solidified.
I think we'll get a wave of commits today, maybe tomorrow morning as well, because of all the kids who were on visits this past weekend. And then I think after this week, we'll get a second little push of kids realizing either that A, they're not going to play, or B, there's no money for them and hit the portal, or not enough money for them, and they'll hit the portal before the May 11th cut date.
And then you wonder how many kids actually end up on the same team that they actually started on and have entered the portal.
Not as many as should.
All right, what's our time? We still got about a minute. Dustin, can you hear me? I know you said you got to get out at 10:10.
Yeah, I got you.
If he takes Kevin a little longer, you're welcome just to hop off whenever you need to.
Okay.
Did you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
Cool.
Oh, yeah, Pete Rose. I forgot about it. It was his birthday last week.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Dumbass.
With quality, local, and organic food as their main focus, Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. I hope you're having a great start to your week. Jim Coyle with you, as is Dustin Schutte, joined now by Kevin Sweeney from College Basketball Central. Kevin, how are you, sir?
Good, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, I love having you. Appreciate you joining us. It's been kind of slowed down a little bit after the initial just rush to the portal and some guys going here and there. And then it's just it was a rather slow week.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to settle into a pattern here for the next couple of weeks where Monday and Tuesday you get a lot of commitments because the kids take their visits, over the weekend, see the campus. Schools, quite frankly, put the pressure on and say you got to decide, and they announce Monday or Tuesday. But then I think the rush into the portal will have absolutely slowed down. The question is, will we still get some, like a trickle of big names as we get closer to the deadline? We got that last year. We kind of got a second wave the final week, which was, I believe, the last week of April. This year it goes until May 11th. So I don't know if that if we'll still be in late April, because that's near the draft deadline. Will it be towards the early to mid-May? I don't know exactly, but I don't think we're done. I don't think the group of names in the portal today is the group of names we're stuck with. I think there's more to come and potentially some big ones.
Yeah, for Indiana, that has not been. They've added a couple of good, obviously, additions to their front court needs. Peyton Sparks, of course, and Khalil Ware. But the positions that they're waiting to fill, those wings, the shooters, that's where they are now. And whether that's going to be
Chris Ledlum, who's been on a visit to Tennessee or Connect or Necht, rather, how you say it. And those are the type of guys that Indiana fans are waiting to hear about. But it's a process. And Mike Woodson did have knee surgery last week, so that kind of put things on a hold for a little bit.
Yeah, that doesn't help matters, right? Like obviously,
no.
Like
bad timing for that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a rush. I mean, obviously, Indiana has enough to sell where like I don't think many kids are gonna like turn down talking to Indiana because they have to wait a week to go to campus because of Mike Woodson's knee surgery. But I do think obviously, like, yeah, you want to hear on those guys because if you know you're not getting them, you can move on to other targets. There are other guys out there who can help them, but they've been in it deep for a while now with guys like Ledlum, and I know he had dinner with Rick Pitino in St. John's yesterday, so it seems like a market is formed for him, and we'll see what he decides. And if he goes elsewhere, then Indiana will have to look elsewhere. But I think he would help. I mean, he's a big physical guy who can make a shot, who can get downhill, who can play multiple positions. Like you can never have enough of those guys.
And I know you talking that there's no reason for anyone to be any kind of a panic. What Indiana needs, and obviously besides the people we're talking about, what is out there for them right now to look at to fill these needs, besides whether it's Necht or the ones that we've been speaking of. Ledlum, Ellis from Louisville kind of entered the picture. What's the kid from Matthew Cleveland from Florida State, maybe another one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of kids who are going through the process a little bit slower. There's also a lot of kids who are kind of seeing where the draft goes first and then focusing on the portal. Like, for instance, Hakeem Hart from Maryland's a guy that Big Ten fans' is a name that Big Ten fans will know. He's a kind of plug-and-play wing starter. He's in the NBA draft and in the portal. I would assume he comes back to college at some point, but there's been very little said about his recruitment. So he'd be a guy who you could maybe work down the list to if that happens. There are some other names, like Cormac Ryan at Notre Dame is a guy who can just flat out shoot the basketball and is solid. He'd be a guy who you could plug in if you missed on a wing target or two. Seamus Lukosius is a pretty similar player to Necht from Butler, another guy whose recruitment has just not been very, very public. So that could mean he's not quite as far down the line in the process. All those guys would be good. And then there's guys you can work down through, with some of the mid-major names that are really, really talented, and go from there. So I think what Indiana's done is smart. And I think to be clear, like there are always more contacts and connections out there than what is being publicized, because oftentimes there are a lot of kind of cursory calls and back channels and things like that. So I would anticipate that Indiana is relatively prepared, regardless of what happens with a guy like Chris Ledlum, to make a quick move to the next target.
How important is it for Mike Woodson for this class, whatever you want to call it? I don't know if you call them classes anymore, just because of the mixture. It's all this cycle. Better for a better word, I guess. They've got to hit the home runs of the pieces they need now. It's not a wait till next year kind of a thing. They need those pieces now if they're going to be competitive at the level they want to be competitive.
Yeah, and I think one that's kind of true to an extent everywhere now, right? Like, I think with the portal, there's less runway, there's less excuses for rebuilding years. Indiana has a lot to sell, and they should expect that they're able to win every year. And I think when you make this splash, like getting Khalil Ware, who's one of the best transfers on the board, one of the most talented kids in the portal, certainly, you also kind of change your timeline a little bit, where this is no longer, we're losing Trace and we're losing these guys, so maybe this is this is a rebuild year. No, not. It wasn't before, and it certainly wasn't after you land one of the best bigs in the portal. So it's time to add those last couple of pieces. They don't have to be huge scorers, but they have to be really good high-level contributors to help this team stay near the top of the Big Ten. Is
there, and this isn't just an Indiana thing, but among college basketball, with the the lack of patience, I guess you could say. It's not like we had a bunch of patience before the transfer portal and all this stuff. But now I'm curious, do coaches feel more pressure to go out and get high-level talent or make pitches to transfer portal guys, even though maybe they don't fit their system, as opposed to recruiting? Because as you mentioned, there's, especially at some of these high-level programs, there's not a lot of patience anymore for rebuild. It's, you got to go out and get this guy so we can win immediately. And there seems to be less excuses for not winning immediately. I mean, there are some guys in this realm that continue to go by. We might add a guy or two from the portal, but a majority of what we're doing is through recruiting. But I feel like if you get into that intermediate area where you got to win now, it's portal or bust, as opposed to trying to build your team through high school recruiting.
I think the best way to put it is that, there's a lot of guys out there, freshmen and sophomores, who've shown a little bit of promise that a while back you would have just bet on. You would have said, hey, look, like, we recruited this guy for a reason. We really like his game. Like, we want to invest time in him and make him a really good player. And now that's seen as a hole that has to get filled. And some coaches are confident enough in who they are to say, look, like, I trust my eyes. I trust this kid. We're going to make it work. But that takes a little bit more job security than it used to. And I think it also takes a rare level of confidence in yourself. I think a lot of coaches kind of measure themselves probably too much, quite frankly, compared to what everybody else is doing. And I think a lot of coaches see, they're not relying on, X guy who averaged 3 points a game last year. Why should we? And so I think that's led to, and I think what's really interesting about that is, obviously, like, every coach now wants to fill every hole they have with the portal. That's going to get a lot more difficult in 2 years once the COVID year's over, because there's a lot of plug and play starters, right? 23 and 24-year-olds who are out there right now, whether they're mid-major guys, whether they're, guys like Hakeem Hard, who I just mentioned, who are just 4-year starters who are like, whatever, I'll do one more year somewhere else. Once those kids go away, there's going to be a lot of holes that people have been used to filling with the portal that aren't going to be able to be filled anymore. And I think that's really an interesting storyline long-term in college basketball.
And going forward, you look at the draft, the top 20 picks in the draft are freshmen or the equivalent. So obviously the elite talent, they're all freshmen. But if you look at the teams that were in the Final Four this year, I don't think that, obviously, there are no one from those teams are in the top 20 of the draft. So there's a difference between having the elite of the elite, but yet having the best team you can have in college basketball. It's a balance of sorts.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that doesn't mean you shouldn't recruit top end freshmen and NBA prospects, but I think you have to be smart about them, and you have to think about, like, are we losing our system and our identity? Do we have to build our entire team around this kid? And if we do, it's probably not the best decision to try to win in March. I think if you can get a guy, right, I think almost all top 20 freshman bigs, like guys who could go in the top tier of the NBA draft who is a freshman big, that's never a good take, in my opinion. Almost never a good take if you want to actually win in March, because you're just not going to. Like the history's there. I mean, Schutte at Texas is actually a great example of this. They took one every year, and it never worked because those guys are so raw. You have to do so much around them to make them successful. To me, like, I want older bigs. I'm okay with taking a younger guard, especially a guy who can score. But I think I would, if I was a coach, I'd really be picking my spots. I know it sounds like a real luxury to say, oh yeah, like I don't really want the guy who's going to go like 23rd in the draft. Like that's a ridiculous statement. But I do think you have to pick your spots of like, hey, we don't necessarily need this, even if it's going to help us win the offseason. It's not going to help us win in March.
I think to me, that's probably one of the hardest disconnects or biggest gaps maybe between fans and coaches, is that every fan wants every 5-star prospect. They want the best guy at every position, right? But when a coach is evaluating talent, they've got to find somebody that's going to fit their system or do what they want to do. Because I think Illinois is a great example of this. I mean, Sky Clark was one of the most heralded players, coming out of high school. Illinois lands him, and you think immediately, okay, this is a Big Ten championship level team. This is a Final Four contender. And it didn't work. And I'm not saying, I mean, Illinois looked better once he left. And I'm not saying that's his fault. I'm not saying that's Brad Underwood's fault. But sometimes those things just don't connect. And we've seen examples of that, throughout college basketball. It's just, that to me is always interesting. It's not necessarily it's not based on the star that you get. It's based on who fits into your system. And I think that's still, even in today's era, still a big disconnect between fans and coaches.
Yeah, it's system fit, and it's also it's evaluating talent, right? And this is no knock on fans who obviously will watch film or whatever and make their opinions, but like, they're not professional talent evaluators. And quite frankly, the professional talent evaluators giving Sky Clark his 5th star were probably wrong. Like Sky Clark is not very good right now. He might get there, and he's talented, but like Jaden Epps was by far a better basketball player this past season than Sky Clark. And quite frankly, if you watch Jaden Epps in the recruiting circuit, I don't understand how the people who are paid to do recruiting rankings said that Jaden Epps was not better than Sky Clark, right? Like that's just, but that's the reality. I think at the end of the day, so much now is, like there's so much focus on all the other stuff about being a head coach. Oh, how are you going to recruit? How are you going to do NIL? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? Like the most important thing still in building a great college basketball team is being an elite talent evaluator and a very good talent developer. If you do those two things well, you're going to win games. You're going to go to the NCAA tournament. You're going to have success in that venue. And I think a lot of guys have gotten away from that because they don't have to anymore, because the portal's right there for them. It's whatever. Like we can just take, especially at a great job, right? If you have a really good program, you have NIL money behind you. All right, I'll just take my pick of the litter. These guys average 16 points a game here. You average 10 points a game here. Boom, boom, boom. We're done. Right? Like that. I don't know how sustainable that's going to be. I think at the end of the day, the guys who really know how to evaluate are going to be the guys that win long term in this. Whether they have one bad year because they're young when everyone else is old, that's fine. But I still think that the same stuff is going to matter long term.
And the balance of hitting the portal, blending the new players with the current roster guys, specifically guys like Caleb Banks, CJ Gunn, who come as freshmen, who are true freshmen, who are going to need to develop. They're looked at as guaranteed 3-year guys, probably. That's without them transferring somewhere. But they're minimum 3 to 4 year guys, probably, which is not the norm anymore in college basketball. And every year, your team is probably going to, in essence, recruit over you in some sort of way. Which there's nothing wrong with competition. You have to have competition. But how much, I wonder, is that going to play into guys that come to a school but leave because every year they're getting recruited over every single year?
Yeah, look, I get frustrated sometimes because I see kids who, they come in as freshmen, they don't play. You would never have expected them to play based on the depth chart when they signed, and then they transfer because they didn't play. It's like, well, you should have known this was coming. But I think at the same time, one that's like investment of time in recruiting, right? Like if you're a head coach, you're going to spend 6 to 8 months recruiting a high school kid. You're going to spend 2 to 3 weeks recruiting a transfer. If you spend 6 to 8 months recruiting a kid who's never going to play his freshman year and then transfer out, you really waste a lot of time. And I think that means that you need to really figure out like what's inside these kids, right? Like if you can recruit a kid like Caleb Banks, who's like, I don't care. Like I want to be in Indiana. I am willing to work. If no matter how long it takes for me to get in the rotation, I'm confident I will get there and I will beat whoever you bring in front of me. And I'm not afraid of competition. Those are the kids you need, right? But if you're going to keep investing all this time in getting like X fringe top 100 recruit, and then all of a sudden X fringe top 100 recruit is just transferring every spring because he didn't play, because why would he play? You recruited him to be the 11th man as a freshman. Then you're just like you have to start thinking like, how are we using our resources and our time in recruiting?
Well, and then of course, I was going to say, you got to blend them with the new guys that come in behind them. Guys like Gabe Cupps, who is going to have some expectations on him, but not to start or anything like that. But now you've got another blend.
100%. Yeah. And I do not envy trying to piece together, okay, we've got these rising sophomores, we've got these freshmen, we've got older guys in the program, and we have these transfers, and all of them have new roles. We have to figure it all out. And that's why summer is more important than ever. It's why when you can take one of those international trips every 4 years, it's huge. The more time you can get and more hands-on you can be with these guys, with these unknown rosters, the better off you're going to be.
So one of the things that you mentioned, Kevin, and this is always an interesting aspect to me, is when you have a kid who came in, nobody thought he was going to play, doesn't play, and then he transfers out. I'm curious to know how much bad advice is going out to some of these kids, because I feel like anymore it's just a simple text message, especially with the way the AAU is 365 days, right? These kids now know each other. If I've got a friend, I'm just using this as an example. If I'm at Indiana and I got a friend that's playing basketball down at Kennesaw State and says, hey, you know what? We are losing a point guard. You'll come in and play immediately. That may not be the best decision, but it's really enticing for me as a 19-year-old kid who didn't play to go down there and maybe get some minutes. So I'm just curious, like, how much of this is bad advice and not making the best long-term decision? Because I think more than just entering the transfer portal, there's like a psychological element to this where kids are running from competition at some stages. I'm not saying you should never transfer or things don't fit. Sometimes you need to transfer. It makes the best decision. But I think when you strictly look at it's just because of playing time, it's not always the best reason to up and leave a school.
So I think it's on both ends, right? So I think on one hand, kids are sold that they're going to play more than they're going to actually play when they're coming in as freshmen. Everyone's told, oh, you're going to get a chance to compete for minutes, and no kid, especially a kid who's been the best player on every team he's been on growing up, is going to think, oh, I'm not going to play. I'm going to get stuck. I'm not good enough, right? Even though on paper that's what's likely to happen. So I think that's like I think that starts it. I think then once you're not playing, you have a million people in your ear being like, you need to leave, you need to go be the star, you need to do this, you need to do that. Let's tear up this long-term plan we had just built because you're playing 3 minutes a game instead of 7. Like, wow, like what a huge difference, right? But so again, I think at the end of the day, you're correct. There's some kids who are getting pushed in to play more. There's some kids who are making a bad decision to go somewhere in the first place where they were never going to play. It's why I think the person you're recruiting is almost as important as the player, because you need to know how they're going to respond to the inevitable like adversity they're going to hit as freshmen. And I think one of the reasons we see such a high percentage of college basketball in the portal right now is there's just not a lot of guys who are responding well to that adversity, or they're 18-year-old kids being easily influenced by 4 million people in the area telling them to do different stuff.
Or sold a bag of goods. I mean, as you mentioned, I do think that there's an element of coaches today who I just want the best player. I just want to get this guy on my roster, and then we'll figure it out once he gets here. As opposed to, there's some coaches, and I'm just using this example. I know it's an Indiana show, but a lot of players will say, Matt Painter's the same guy who was on the floor, in practice on the game as he was in my living room, and you don't always get that from other coaches. And I'm not singling anybody out or anything, but I think that also plays a factor. Like maybe they're not lying to some of these recruits, but I think, as you mentioned, a good point that you brought up, you'll get a chance to compete. And like you said, a lot of kids, when you've been playing, 30 minutes a game and you're averaging 25 points, you think you're going to come in and play and you have a lot of faith in yourself, and it's just not always the best situation.
Gabe Cupps is a perfect example of fans talking about him right now. Some saying he's going to get this minutes, and some saying that he's going to start and this and that. I'm not going to say jack because, again, I learned from this past season more than ever, predictions are out. They're out. I don't care what their accolades say behind them until next year when that ball is bouncing on the floor and they've been through an entire season of collegiate type practices and against collegiate type players and making that adjustment. I'm not saying that Gabe Cupps isn't going to start for Indiana, but I'm saying that I'm not predicting that. There's Trey Galloway, not that he's a better player, but experience sometimes is enough of a difference to prevent you from making simple freshman mistakes that kind of keep you off the floor. But I'm not saying that Gabe Cupps or anyone else is afflicted with that. But I'm just saying you can't make that prediction based off of their high school performances.
Yeah, 100%. We just don't know how these guys will translate. Obviously, he's really, really talented, and sometimes you get to a point where you're good enough where they can't keep you off the floor, right? Like Jalen Hood-Schifino was not perfect by any stretch, especially early in the season, but he was just too talented to leave off the floor at points. And I think the hope, if you're Indiana, is that a guy like Cups could be that, but obviously no guarantees. And there are a lot more guys who play 10 minutes, a lot more freshmen that play 10 minutes a game than play Jalen Hood-Schifino minutes.
Plus, Jalen Hood-Schifino was able and forced to grow into that with the injury to Xavier. He was given many more minutes than he expected to get. Someone like Gabe Cups, unless something like that happens, that's probably not going to happen. You've got Xavier, you've got Trey Galloway. We don't know who else is coming in what position. So, but the thing is, until it happens, there's no predictions that can be made.
Yeah, 100%.
What's up next for you?
Just working away on the portal. Got a bunch of and the draft. I'll be at the combine next month. Trying to piece together just every offseason move. I got to start making my master depth chart file that I make every year for every team. So I'm prepared for that. So no, we're not chilling yet, but it's certainly a little less hectic than it was 2 weeks ago.
Well, make sure you give Kevin a follow at College Basketball Central. Kevin, thank you, brother. We look forward to talking to you again soon. Appreciate you more than you know.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You bet. Dustin Schutte as well, brother. You're out for the day as well. Look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Correct, Amundo?
Absolutely. I'll be here.
All right, brother. We look forward to it to then. We're back with more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
All right. And you can still use Tom Allen here if you want, since nobody else is with us.
Yes, I will. How in the world can someone say that Gabe Cups is a better point guard than Jalen Hood-Schifino right now? Steven, I'm sorry, brother, but I 100% disagree with you. And to make that statement, there's most other people not on the board. I'm talking about, and I am not in that category, but what I would consider experts in that field. I'm hungry.
All right.
No, what are they saying? He's going to start over Xavier? That's not going to happen. Come on. Man, it's cold outside. Cold and windy.
All right, here we go.
Where in Bloomington near Cabello is locally owned and operated by Endeavor Hospitality Group. Launched from a previous staple in Bloomington, the former Function Brewing, Metalworks Brewing Company is the culmination of a passion for beer, food, and custom metal art. Check out their custom growlers. Metalworks Brewing Company has an updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste with Dr. Hops' Brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by K-Bello. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. I hope your week is off to a great start. Been another fun show here. There's a lively debate going on the Andy Moore Honda hotline right now regarding Jalen Hutchefino, Gabe Cupps, and I'm going to have to completely disagree that Gabe Cupps, while a fine player, is not at the same level right now that Jalen Hutchefino was now, a year ago, much less right now. That if that were the case, he would be expected to be a one and done, and not too many 4-stars are thought of that way. Not that means anything, but yeah, that's I just disagree with that, but we'll see. He'll have his opportunity. He'll certainly get the opportunity to play. People get hung up on this starting thing. Whether he's going to start or who's starting. Starting does not matter. Although, generally, your best players are your starters. But it's the minutes that matter. It's the minutes win that matter. He is not going to play in place of who's he going to replace? Xavier at point? He's going to replace Trey Galloway at the number 2. Now that would probably be a more likely scenario, and it's not impossible if he would put shots up and hit them without question, because Indiana has to have that. They don't need someone to just run around at the 2 spot. You have to have a producer at the 2 spot. If you're not producing on a regular basis, you're kind of just taking up space. So I would not be surprised if he could work his way into that role, but I don't think he's there right now. Thank you very much, Chris. Hit that like button. We appreciate you. Those of you that if you're not listening on radio, if you're listening on catching us on YouTube someplace else, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Over the weekend, lots of football action, college football out and about, including Indiana had their spring game. And their biggest problem is the same as the Colts. Who's going to be their quarterback? They don't know. Brandon Sorsby is the former walk-on freshman. He's not a freshman anymore, obviously. You've got Taven Jackson. But it's an open battle, not just between those two either. I think those two gentlemen took the most snaps, it appeared, over the weekend. No official stats were kept. Let's hear what Tom Allen had to say about it, and we'll finish up with some hoops talk.
Just really excited about the work we got, even continue today. More individual technique, fundamentals, working on the things we got to do to get better. We've got 2 young quarterbacks that I believe have tremendous high upside, and just got to keep developing those guys, developing them. Got our weapons, we just got to keep getting better in every phase. These next several months are going to be huge. Really positive, and it's a big deal is getting out of the spring healthy. Had 0 long-term injuries. Had some guys that missed some days, but nothing that's going to be past probably the next month, so that's hasn't been the case the last several years. So that's a big deal to get through it, to be able to be healthy and to come through and have a great summer. So finish out academically strong here, 2 weeks in the weight room, and then we got finals, and then we'll have the month of May and then June and July. So feel like we made progress. I really wanted to develop our toughness as a team as a huge priority. And obviously we'll watch this and create some things off of that, but got some good situations to work through. But more than anything, just want to get everybody involved today and have a good positive opportunity for our fans and be able to have some interaction there with them. So it's been a very, very positive spring. Excited about where we're at. We've got a lot of work ahead of us.
Tom Allen certainly did not lose any of his spunk and vim and vigor over the winter time, ready to go. And he'll have all summer to deal with his football team to try to develop and manage who their starting quarterback is going to be, amongst other things.
Go ahead. If Taven Jackson's a starter, how long into the first TV broadcast till they mention that he's Trace's brother? Because we know that's going to be one of the things that no matter which game, no matter how many games,
won't even wait till they're into the broadcast. You mean till the game starts? I mean,
well I'm just talking once they, because that's just going to be.
I'll be honest with you. It's hard for me not to say it.
Of course.
I'll be honest. It's not because of a comparison, but and it's not that I don't think people don't know it. You just gotta get it out of your head. I mean, I have to get it out. I'm like, okay, yes, I know that. I know that. Stop saying it. But they absolutely, because network broadcasts, they generally think that nobody knows anything. But a good portion of that audience may not know that. If they're not IU fans, they definitely wouldn't know it. Probably,
especially, I get it. It's just it's one of those broadcasting crutches that I feel like will be commonality once if Taven is the starter for Indiana, obviously.
Yep, and we'll find out. I mean, he had to learn a lot at Tennessee, but I'll tell you, gee whiz, no wonder he left Tennessee. Gee whiz. And then Hooker, and then you've got three guys behind that it's Tennessee is in quarterback heaven. Maybe not as much as as Texas with Ewers and Arch Manning and guys like that. But yeah, it's a different deal. I'm loving the little deal that's going on the Andy Moore Honda hotline, talking about Gabe Cupps and Ja'Kai Newton. Guys starting next year, and man, there is no way in the world who's going to start. I can tell you that. And starting, oh my God, that's the least of. You don't even know who's on the roster yet, guys. You don't even know who's on the roster, so you can't make predictions on anything. People asking how did Braden Smith start? Because he was a freshman. Well, who was in front of him? And how well did that work out for Purdue? They won the Big Ten. But I don't think it was because of Braden Smith. So, those comparisons not relevant. You just got to let it fill out. Let the rosters fill out. Let the team fill out. Who knows? Maybe Trey Galloway realizes that if he doesn't shoot the ball, his minutes are going to subside greatly. There's no point to him being on the floor if he's not going to shoot the ball. He is not a defensive specialist. He's not a rebounding specialist. So what is the specialization? You have to have a role. You have to be doing something positive and productive, or there's no point to you being on the floor. That goes for any and everyone. Indiana had too much of that last year. That's why they could not go very far. You can't have two guys that you're getting your production from. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting.
2 minutes.
I'm not going to count him out. I know he can shoot. Maybe the competition is exactly what he needs. That competition from Gabe Cupps or whomever. But it'll be interesting to see how that team comes out once the roster is full and the competition starts swaying. Because you're finally going to have guys that are not guaranteed starting spots. There's one guy that I know that will start for a fact, and that's Xavier Johnson if he comes back. So, John Boy, tomorrow on the program, looking forward to Mike DeCourcy joining us, in addition to Chronic Hoosier. Not missing anyone, am I?
I don't think so.
We'll follow up and see anything happens today. Like you heard Kevin Sweeney talk about, there could be a possibility of commitment starting to happen. And we'll keep our eyes on that and keep you updated as such as we go. And back tomorrow to do it all again. Can't wait. Looking forward to it. Again, big thanks to Dustin Dopirak, Dustin Schutte, Kevin Sweeney from College Basketball Central. John, the producer. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we've got no reason to be here. Go out and have yourselves an incredibly great day. We're back here to do it again tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.